episode of The Proud Skill Worker. Today we have Ed Carlson with us. Ed, thank you so much for being on the show today.
It's an honor. I'm glad to be here.
Ed, tell us, where are you currently and where are you from?
I am currently in Lumberton, North Carolina, and my address is currently in Lewistown, Pennsylvania.
Very cool. So Lumberton sounds like it has maybe 15 people in it. Can you give us some proximity to a larger locale for people?
It's actually quite a bit bigger than that, but I'm a little south from Fayetteville.
Perfect. So, Ed, what industry are you in out there?
So I work industrial maintenance.
Very cool. Tell us a little bit about how you got into the trades, how long you've been in the trades, what that's been like for you.
It's been a wild ride. So I went to ITT Tech for electronics engineering. I got out of there, started working for a company repairing circuit boards, and I found that it was very tedious work, and it wasn't very physically demanding, and I didn't feel very rewarded by it. And I was offered an opportunity with a company working industrial maintenance who needed somebody more on the circuitry end. And it kind of took off from there.
Really cool. ITT Tech, how long was that program?
It was a 2-year degree.
A 2-year degree. Okay. And in those skills that you learned, I know that they were more circuitry level, but how much are you using those today?
Not a whole lot. I feel like a lot of the things that I got from ITT were, a level of professionalism, general troubleshooting abilities, stuff like that. Having a fundamental understanding of electronics is extremely useful. Knowing things like Ohm's law and how to use a multimeter and stuff like that are really important.
It's great. As you've kind of been in the industry and now you've transitioned industries, you've left circuitry and gotten more into industrial maintenance, which is going to be more large scale. What have been some of the biggest challenges in your career?
Getting the opportunity to learn the things that I need to know to do the job. Thankfully, that first company was very dedicated to training. And so they sent me for classes for welding and machinery and hydraulics and pneumatics and office ergonomics and a whole bunch of wild stuff. And just as much training as I could possibly get my hands on. And they were here's a checklist of all the training opportunities this year, flick off the ones you want. And I would check every one of those boxes as often as I could, it was a big transition going from, sitting behind a desk, flipping switches and watching lights to, sometimes you're fixing a clogged toilet, and sometimes you're, diving into a machine the size of my house. So it's crazy.
That's incredible to just hear like the varying degree of the day that you experience. But I think it's a testament to who you are and a testament a lot to the industry you're in and the relevance of taking on courses. You mentioned that they gave out a list of courses you could attend or of things that you were able to do. And your goal was to take every single one of them. Why? Why are you constantly trying to take more and more classes? What's the goal, Ed?
Again, with having such a wide variety of things that can happen in the day, and walking up to a machine and knowing there's something that needs to be done to it, and having no idea how that machine works and having no idea what you need to be doing can be really frustrating. It makes you feel bad about yourself, and it means that the repair takes a really long time. The more you know about the machine, the more you know about how it works and how all of its components and how they work, the faster you can get it taken care of and the easier it is to do the job.
That's awesome. So knowing how that machine works, on our previous podcast, we had a guest on who talked about when you first walk up to a machine, the first step should just be ask the operator, what's changed? How's the day? What does this machine do? Is that something you found to be valuable as well as you transition into the industry, just getting to know the operator and getting to know the machines, or what's your approach?
The operator's input can often be super important. In some of the places I've worked, you run into language barriers that make things difficult, or you have operators who just really don't want to deal with maintenance or talk to maintenance. And that can make the repair take a lot longer because now you're doing even more troubleshooting. You've got a lot more work to figure out what exactly is wrong. There have been times I've walked up and the operator was like, oh yeah, no, just tighten this bolt a little bit. I'll be fine. I'm like, oh, that's super easy. Thanks for making my job a lot easier. But yeah, there are times where if the operator isn't giving you a lot of input, you can really struggle trying to figure out what exactly is wrong.
I think it's really good knowledge to have that the operator stands there anywhere between 6 and 8 hours a day. They know that machine. They know all the fixes that have been done on it. And like you just said, it could take you hours to figure out to tighten that bolt, but the operator standing there goes, "Hey, tighten this. This is what's happening." Fix it in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So talk to me more about this idea you had coming out of ITT. So you went to ITT and you had a career path, you had a mission, you had a plan. You got into your career field with your education, and you said, "Well, now I'm not doing anything that's all that exciting." So if you had the option to go back, or if you were able to tell younger technicians or younger people who are about to get started in the trades, what would you tell them you've learned during your career change?
I went to a vocational school during high school and got a vocational degree in electronics. And honestly, I use that information more than I use my college degree. The trades, you don't need a 2-year degree to get into the trades. And most of the time, that's just a huge loan that you've got to pay off. Hands-on training, having a fundamental understanding of some of these things can be all that's really required to get your foot in the door.
As you go to seek more and more hands-on training, especially at that first company you mentioned that let you in the door to do industrial maintenance, when you approached older technicians or technicians who were more senior to you, how'd you go about that to make sure that they knew you weren't cocky or arrogant or looking to kind of get in their way, that you were looking to absorb information from them? How'd you go about that?
Ask a lot of questions. And don't be upset when people give you the cold shoulder or hey, I don't have time to answer your questions right now. A lot of the time, especially going to a new plant, I don't know that machinery super well. They usually put me, you shadow somebody for a while and you're kind of watching over their shoulder to see how they're doing things. Once you're finished with the repair, you've got a couple minutes. That's when to ask the questions. That's when to say, okay, now that, the breakdown has been fixed and the line's running and everything's going smoothly again, could you tell me how you did that? What you were looking for? What caused you to think that this was the problem? And yeah, those questions can be really influential to getting a good understanding how that individual machine works.
Oh, that's so smart. Just waiting until the stress level kind of lowers to ask your questions. Because for those of us who have kids or anybody in our life who ask questions, the worst time is when you're in the middle of the stress. Like after the situation, hey, I'll explain it all to you. So how'd you learn that? Is that something that you just kind of felt over and over again where you're like, I am a burden right now? Or is that just something that you were able to?
I was definitely a burden a lot of the time. And one of my first coworkers was an older gentleman. He was a fork truck repairman. And there were a lot of times he would be like, you know what, ask me that again in 10 minutes. I learned a lot from him in those 5 to 10 minute down periods, after we finished something or filling out paperwork and going, hey, all right, so how did you do this? Or a lot of the time after he realized how I was interested in learning how he was doing everything he was doing, he would pull me aside afterwards and say, okay, this is what happened. This is where I went. This is why we did this.
I think that's really great. Taking time to shadow. So I do, you watch, and then after that's over, you go, okay, I did. What did you learn? And here's kind of the information. I think there's some really good learning and growing techniques inside of that are important. So now as a technician who works on his own independently, how do you handle that situation? If someone comes to you and is asking you questions in the height of your stress moment, what's your response?
I have a kind of lifelong desire to share as much information as I can. So just as much as I want to learn, I want to make the lives of the people around me easier. I get a lot of new technicians that are just first stepping into the field. I do my best to, while I'm working on something, explain everything that's going on. And then, after that stress has died down, go, okay, do you have any questions? Did anything I say not make sense? And try to be open and give information freely.
That's great. I think that ties really well into this idea of developing and growing younger technicians, which everybody keeps saying it's really hard to grow young technicians. It's really hard. And I don't disagree with that, but I do think it's because nowadays younger technicians have more options. They're definitely less likely to stay in one place forever, and they're looking to be treated well and to be treated as an equal. So my question to you is, how can you change the maintenance field so that younger technicians stay around? You talk about them you want to give them a library of knowledge. So how can you make a change in the maintenance field?
There are a lot of things. I mean, having a like group environment and, keeping the understanding that it doesn't matter if you've been working here for 60 years or, 6 days, that we're all a team and we need to be able to work together and we need to be able to communicate efficiently. And often find myself going, hey, I know you're new here. If you need to borrow tools, just say something, let me know, and I'll make sure you get the tools you need. If you need, be open and inviting and remember that we're all a team and we've got to work together.
I love that. I think being on a maintenance team is so valuable as opposed to trying to be on an island by yourself and fix everything alone.
Yeah.
Man, that's tough. Love it, love it, love it. So this is my favorite part of the show. This is where I turn it over to you. You have anywhere between 5 and 50 minutes, depending on how long you want to talk, to just on your soapbox. I'm giving you a platform to tell every maintenance technician across every industry in the world one thing. What is that one thing you would tell everybody that you think people struggle with the most, that you've seen the most growth in? What's that thing, Ed?
Safety. It's 100% safety. We work with machines that passively do not care if they harm us. We harness lightning to melt metal. We do a lot of really crazy stuff, and there is no product that is worth your life or your limbs or your eyesight or your hearing or, it's so important to stop and think, what am I doing? How can this harm me or others around me? And what can I do to prevent that? I watch a lot of, I've seen some pretty bad things happen in the field, and it's always avoidable. Take the time, no matter how stressed you are, no matter how rushed you feel, take the time to figure it out. I want to make sure all my coworkers go home every day to see their families. That's super important.
That's huge. I think it's an interesting way that you put that, is that you harness lightning to melt metal. But if you really do think about it at a large scale, you're doing the unthinkable. I mean, you're turning micro products into massive products, and you're turning metal into liquid. And inside of that, you're putting the human body, which is, we'll just call it mushy, pretty pliable to those machines. So, man, that's a great reminder to people, because I think as people become more and more familiar in those environments, and they've done it in a bunch, I think safety becomes the last thing.
Yeah, complacency is a big issue in this field. Oh, I've done this a million times and I've never worn safety glasses when I did it a million times. So it's okay if I don't wear safety glasses now. Or I've done it a million times and I wear safety glasses all the time. I've never needed them. So I can rush through this real quick. And it only takes one. It only takes one bad, opportunity to cause a permanent change.
So awful. Yeah, it's complacency is the word. And you mentioned it, getting people home to their families. So that's something I know is valuable to you as you have a family. It's valuable to everybody whose family gets to see their husband, their father, their wife, their mother. All of these people walk through the door at the end of the day. How does your family impact your work right now, Ed? I mean, what are they doing to support you?
There's a lot of drive here. My wife followed with me. We have 2 dogs, and my wife kind of gave up her life, her job, her friends, her everything to come with me on this adventure. And, I want to make sure that not only do I come home every day, but that I can put food on the table, that, all the bills get paid. I often look at this world as like, the most important thing to me is my faith. The second most important thing to me is my family. And, everything else can fight for third place. I want to make sure that what I'm doing is right by God, but what I'm doing is also right by my wife, by my parents, by my siblings, by my family.
Yeah, I think It's so important to have a purpose, Ed. And as you know, here at Skillwork, honoring God is our number one core value. It's what we do. And then respecting trades and impacting others. So awesome to hear of a purpose. And it makes things a lot easier when you have a purpose for doing them. It makes those days where you're grinding 12, 13 hours, it makes that 13th hour a little easier when you can go, all right, it's for my family. So keeping things centered is really important. And Ed, I appreciate you just coming on and saying that. I don't have anything else for today. I think that's probably just about the best note we could ever end on. But if you got something you want to add, please feel free.
No, I think we've covered it.
I love it. All right. A huge thank you to our guest, Ed, and a huge thank you to all you who are out there listening. Please leave a comment, reach out, continue to subscribe to us, whether it be on Apple, YouTube, or Spotify, or wherever it is you listen to your podcast. Also, please feel free to reach out via comment or email if you want to be on the show. And thank you, everybody. And again, as Ed said, faith first, family, everything else can fight for third. Thanks all.